Today we sit at our chair today as we supervise and direct. Today we direct you to a Comic Talkers production, and you are listening to Just for Flix as we today discuss our top 5 directors of all time. I am Patty B, your host. As always, with me today is Mr. B Dog, Mr. Brandon. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to get excited to do this and talk about some of our favorite directors of all time.
Yeah. I had some issues, kind of there's a lot to choose from and a lot of different creativity from different people. And I think it's all depending on what you like, and the movies that they've made in the past. And I think that's what makes them our favorite. So, yeah, no, I think I've made up a good list. We're also going to go through our honorable mentions, as we always do in between our second and first picks. So, yeah, other than that, I think we're ready to get started. Get right into it.
And before we get started, too, fans, remember these are our personal lists. These are not an overall list. So please, in those comments below, please let us know what your top 5 directors are. We want to hear and we want to see what movies you love of these directors as well.
Definitely. Most definitely. All righty. Well, I guess I got to start on my number 5, which been kind of bringing him up lately. I've been watching some of his movies. Mr. Tim Burton.
Okay.
Tim Burton. Beetlejuice, the Batman movies. It's that he was kind of already self-made before he even made A Nightmare Before Christmas. Or the night. So just like I said, the creativity kind of has that eeriness to it as well. In all of his movies, it's Tim Burton's I would say the king of Halloween movies. Maybe not so much, but it always has that grim, that eerie feeling to everything he does. Frankenweenie, Big Fish, Sleepy Hollow. Big Fish is another one of my favorite movies of his personally. But did worked on Pee-wee's Big Adventure as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The thing, like I always tell people now, when you go back and watch the Batman movies nowadays, it is not aged well. It has, but he is the first director to really make Gotham look grim, and he took a lot of inspiration. I tell fans too, from The Dark Knight Returns, which if anybody does not know is probably one of the best Batman comics of all time. It is seriously the best one, like top tier Batman. This is when Batman comes out of retirement, so on and so forth. He adapted that Gotham and put it into a movie. I give him always props on that. But to me, though, I know you say he was kind of a well-established director. He's an honorable mention for me because I like his movies. But I think Nightmare Before Christmas really put him more on the mark.
Yeah.
And put him more on the map, because then after you got hits like Frankenweenie, like you said, Corpse Bride, Caroline is another big one, but not only that, you also had Ed Wood, you had Edward Scissorhands, you had a lot of odd movies that worked. And Tim Burton was great at that,
Sweeney Todd. I mean, the adaptation of Sweeney Todd's probably one of my favorite musical movies. Yeah, and like you said too, I want to go back to Batman real quick. I love how it's like you said, it's grim with Gotham. And it's also a little cartoony. It's got it's very but in a good way. I like how he does it. It's kind of like what he did with Beetlejuice when they cross over into the land of the dead, and it's kind of cartoony. It's got a little vibrant color. It's in the 80s, so it's got that 80s flair to it. But yeah, no, I love his movies, and there's also a feel with the music behind it too. I think Danny Elfman worked with him a lot, and Danny Elfman for sure with Nightmare Before Christmas playing Jack Skellington.
Yeah, he did,
and all those other things.
Now, like one of the other big things you could talk about too, he's boosted a lot of actors' careers. Michael Keaton's a big one. Michael Keaton remember when they were talking about that too? Like when we read articles nowadays, people had no faith in him playing Batman and Bruce Wayne.
Really?
They had no faith in him because what was he known for beforehand? Mr. Mom. That was about all he was really known for. And Tim Burton brought him and brought this new Bruce Wayne Batman into the picture. But it's like we always say when it comes to comic book movies, and especially with Batman, there's always different adaptations of them. And each one has a different side. So, like you said, this is more of the cartoon animated series style, kind of cartoonish cartoon that we want to see, right?
Yeah.
You get, well, except Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze, but that's not him, thank God.
Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, well, it wasn't.
Ah.
That was Shoemaker, and that was stupid. Anyway, not the point. That's why he's never making my top 5 list now. Um, but you get different Batmans and stuff, and I think he brought the Batman we needed at that point in time. Um, you know, the only character I will always say with the Batman movies I never liked was Max Schreck, played by Christopher Walken. You know,
Mhm.
I almost killed the Batman. You know, it's a little poke.
Oh, when in Batman Returns, I
Yeah,
think that's probably Batman Returns is probably my favorite of those Batmans personally. That's another discussion for another
yeah.
day,
Like
probably.
that would be a discussion.
But
Like we rank all the Batman movies from worst
yeah,
kind of
we
thing.
can easily do that. Let us know, fans, if you wanna hear that. I would love to do that at some point. But yeah, no, finishing up with Tim Burton, you know, like I love how you can just you feel it when you watch his movies that it's his movie. You know, like, oh, this is what you know, it's been a while since I've watched an actual Tim Burton movie, and I think preparing myself when we were doing this, I started to watch some of his movies. I'm like, man, I love it. I'm glad I picked him. You know, one more thing too, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I think it's too much hate. I know it sounds like you're not a big fan, but I think people compare it way too much to the Gene Wilder one. They're two completely different movies, and I think people need to kind of realize that.
And granted, I'll give you that part. I think, but I think the only reason I'd compare them is because to me, I feel like it was they were remaking.
Mhm.
And to me, Gene Wilder is Willy Wonka. Like you cannot get past that. You can't. And I just don't feel like Johnny Depp really brought out Willy Wonka. I felt like it was just like, you always say there's actors who take gigs just to get money. And I felt like that with Johnny Depp. That's the
Really?
reason I did not like that movie is Johnny Depp. I did not, I don't, Johnny Depp, mind you, is great in a lot of movies he's in.
Mhm.
Good actor, everything. The problem is with me is that movie, I felt like he tried too hard. And that's what made me not like it. Because it was like you can see when actors are trying to do good. And then there's actors who just and I think Johnny Depp, you see that a lot where you see he's good in movies, but he tries too hard.
Yeah.
And I think, or he tries too hard in other roles. And I do feel like that with Willy Wonka. I did not like his Willy Wonka. That is the reason I hated that movie is because of him. It wasn't because of anybody else. It was I just every time I watch that, you look at him and he looks more awkward,
Yeah.
and you look at Gene Wilder and it's smooth. And that's where I compare them. Like Gene Wilder is just a smooth talking person. Willie or Johnny Depp was just more, oh, like he didn't know what he was supposed to be doing.
Well, and that's the thing. They're two completely different characters, I think, on how they portray. You know, Gene Wilder, as far as he's just a sly, like he's smart, but he's kind of quirky as well. But then also with Johnny Depp, I feel like is a bit more zany, kind of like out there version
Mm.
of Willy Wonka. But um I also just like the feel of that movie, like it feeling like a Tim Burton movie, you know, but it's not as like creepy, but it's kind of like how Big Fish is. Big
Right.
Fish has its moments too.
Yeah.
Um,
So no, I think Tim Burton's a great pick. Unfortunately, he did not make my list.
yeah, there's too many to choose from, man.
Yeah,
There really is. It's definitely a hard one for sure.
but I'll keep us on the topic of horror and suspense if you'd like. With my number 5, I am going with the master of suspense himself, the probably the oldest director here, Mr. Alfred Hitchcock. Um, I knew automatically this list was going to have Alfred on this, and um, you got movies like Vertigo, Psycho. You have North by Northwest. Um, what was it? Birds. That there's a
Yeah.
lot of good movies they do with him, and or that he directs and how he changed the industry with how to portray horror scenes. That shower scene is probably still one of the most iconic horror scenes of all time. Is still the
Mhm.
from Psycho. He worked hard to get what he wanted. There's a I'm not sure if you ever watched it, but there's a movie called Hitchcock. And what it's about, it's Anthony Hopkins playing Hitchcock. Um, and Helen Moore is his wife, So you already know it's a good cast. Scarlett Johansson plays what's her face in the shower. I can't remember her name all the way, but
Yeah.
she's the mom of a very famous horror persona in the horror industry, Jamie Lee Curtis. Um,
Yeah.
but his movies redefined horror and redefined what it means to truly be scared. That music with what's his name? The music that he does with Bernard Herrmann. There we go. The music he does with Bernard Herrmann is just fantastic. And it's the
Yeah.
one that does the iconic shower scene song. And just hearing that suspense, and that's why I say if you ever have time to go watch that biopic they did of him, please go do it because
Okay.
they actually portrayed Hitchcock, and it actually is a true thing that he walked out the theater during the opening, and when the shower scene came on, he was sitting out there like dancing and like reenacting what he was seeing, and this hearing
Mhm.
scream. It
That's
is
funny.
it's so perfect, and that's Alfred Hitchcock. Good evening. It's just those iconic things to me. I grew up with Alfred Hitchcock. I grew up with my grandma. That was the only horror stuff my grandma would ever watch with me, and my mom. But my mom tried to get me into other things. I didn't go that route. I stayed with Alfred Hitchcock. But those are movies I watch every Halloween. Is Psycho and Birds and things like that because those aren't scary, but those
Yeah.
are iconic. You know, and we wouldn't have some of the stuff with horror that we do today if it wasn't for a man like this. So Alfred Hitchcock
100%.
number 5 for me. So was
Yeah. I like just I was gonna say Alfred Hitchcock, Dial M for Murder is a
yeah.
one of I like that one. Rear Window is probably my favorite Hitchcock movie. I know you got Psycho, The Birds, Vertigo. Um,
Mhm.
I just they're all iconic, and like you said, he kind of redefined horror itself and kind of gave it a new meaning, of what it can actually potentially be, So
Granted, he did other movies that's than horror. He did romance movies, he did things like that, but he is most iconic for horror.
yeah.
And to have that, it's just fun to see and enjoy.
He
And
directed for a long time too.
yeah, yeah.
His first I'm seeing his first movie was in 1925.
He was a big name director for quite some time, but like he started, I would say, more getting famous more in the 40s and 50s.
Mhm.
That's when you get like Vertigo and Dial In for Murder and North by Northwest. And then you get more iconic ones where you get to Psycho in the 60s. You get a lot of these iconic. He hit his stride more in the 40s, 50s, and 60s
Mhm.
compared to earlier. So no, I knew right away. My list was simple. I knew right away what I was going to put, and I knew this guy was going to make my list. But I hate to say it, he is my number 5. So I'm turning back over to you, Pat, to go over your number 4.
So, I think this one's no surprise for you at least. I went with the director. I call him the director of color palettes. Always when you watch his movies, you automatically know it's one of his movies. It's Wes Anderson as my number 4.
I'm
Uh,
like, it kind of shocks me he's that low on your list. Like I thought he would at least be 3 or 2 on your.
no, you know what? I started watching his movies pretty recently, as far as just and Bottle Rocket's easily one of my it's probably my favorite movie of his. Right behind that is Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Mhm.
I like all of it. You know what? I would say, like, if I had to pick a top 3 of his movies, it would be Darjeeling, Fantastic Mr. Fox, and Bottle Rocket. But I don't really have nothing bad to say about any of his movies. I mean, some of his movies are a little out there, as far as, quirkiness goes and just being kind of awkward a little bit.
Mr.
But
Fantastic Fox being one of them. Like that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
movie when you watch it, it's like, okay, this is kind of weird. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I like I said, with the whole color thing, and we spoke about this when we've watched Bottle Rocket. Um, that's his first movie, and you can start to see, the seeds that are being sown in the way he makes movies, the way he shoots everything, and especially the way he has dialogue between characters. I think it's straightforward, it's smart alecky, and that's why we love it, especially Rushmore too. Rushmore is Max Fisher, the character that Jason Schwartzman plays, and he's a smart aleck through and through. That's what his character is, and it's just great. So, um, I would definitely recommend people watching his earlier catalog if you've never seen his movies. I think his first four movies are pretty good. As far as Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, Royal Tenenbaums, and The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. Steve Zissou, I was recommending that to you the other night, Brandon. When you get a chance, you should definitely check that movie out.
Now, the only one though, if I'm not mistaken, that he won awards for. Well, I think he won it for best animation for Fantastic Mr.
Yeah, he did.
But the only other one he's really won one for or anything with is Grand Budapest.
Yeah.
And it's not nothing with him. That's the sad thing. It's with the cinematography or the color formats and stuff. And then he also won one for the score. The score was iconic for.
Hmm.
I still like the Grand Budapest Hotel score. It's just fast paced. It's fun. It's just energetic. You love it. That is one I'm shocked you haven't brought up is Grand Budapest because
Yeah, yeah. I had it up here. I mean, I was gonna, yeah, Grand Budapest. I was recommended that by a friend I work with, and I went home and watched it. Like I said, I watched all these movies relatively recently, except for a few. Like I've seen Bottle Rocket years ago, and I've seen Royal Tenenbaum years ago. But as far as like the Grand Budapest, and that came out in 2014 as well. So I saw it probably about a year and a half ago now.
Mhm.
And when I watched it for the first time, I've noticed with a lot of his movies, it kind of starts out like a story. Like when the first scene is like usually it's like a book, or it's like explaining this, it's going to be, we're diving into this tale that he's about to tell.
Right.
And that's how it starts with Grand Budapest with, what's his name? Is it Abram Murray, or he's in a bunch of movies. I'm kind of drawing a blank on his name now. I don't have it in front of me, but he's plays Zero, and like just the way he explains everything in that movie is great. And then you have all the addition of all the other great actors that are in that movie too. I know he uses a lot of the same people. As far as was it Owen Wilson?
Yep.
I mean, we talked about that. I mean, Owen Wilson got his career started with Wes Anderson. That's one of his actually really good friends. So, Bill Murray, Jason Schwartzman, Willem Dafoe.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, like I said, I highly recommend people checking him out if you haven't watched any of his movies. Recommend Fantastic Mr. Fox. I think that's a really good family movie to watch, especially if you have a little one. I know my little one loves that movie. So, but anyway, yeah, that's my number four, and I'm pretty happy to have him on my list. So
So I'm going to tell you right now, when it comes to my number four, it's gonna be. Let's put it this way. I know originally I had a man from our hometown, Modesto, on my list. But it really comes down to it, he's not really directed a lot of films. So I took him off because he's more written or characters have been based off stuff he's worked with.
yeah,
So originally my number four was George Lucas. But I am actually going to go with one of my honorable mentions for everything this man has done. not only as a director, but also as an actor. I'm going with Mr. Clint Eastwood as my number 4. Um,
I had
Clint,
a
East-
feeling.
Clint Eastwood, I love a lot of the movies he's been a part of. And the best thing is he's been able to direct and not only direct, act in his own movies. Some of my favorite ones I can come off the top of my head right now is A Million Dollar Baby, Gran Torino,
Love Gran Torino.
Unforgiven is another big one. What was it? He's also did directed American Sniper, the Outlaw, Josie Wells.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies I love, and I will still admit this is a guilty pleasure of mine, is Heartbreak Ridge. Now, is it his best movie? No. Is it a very political kind of movie or things like that? Yeah, kind of. But it's a guilty pleasure because there's a lot of one-liners in there. He's a Have you ever watched Heartbreak Ridge? Let me ask you that.
No, I don't think I have. I have it in front of me. I'm looking at it right now.
He's a gunnery sergeant, leading a recon platoon, and
Okay.
it's just there's just a lot of iconic one-liners in the movie. But that's not the reasons I'm choosing him for this list. You have just great movies with him. I believe he directed Trouble with the Curve as well, if I'm not
He
mistaken.
did. He
And
did.
he also did Invictuous. He does a lot of good movies, and he's really good at directing them. And it just comes to show that his years in acting has really come to fruition, where now he's directing. I believe he did win Best Director for Million Dollar Baby, which was
Mhm.
worth it. His shots, his visuals of that movie were fantastic. Hilary Swank, I loved like the dark rim parts of it with just a little bit of lighting. I loved
Yeah.
with her, with Hilary Swank. Morgan Freeman was great in that movie. Still one of my favorites. I hope we do a watch along of that one day. Gran Torino. I just love like the old style shots.
Yeah.
It's not just vibrant and stuff. It looks a little grim and dark. That
Yeah.
but there's just so many great movies. Another good one too, The Bridges of Madison County, that he directed.
Yeah.
But still, one of my favorites with him is Unforgiven. It's probably the only Western I can actually sit here and say I will watch with him. And it's just because there's a lot of good actors in that film, and he just does it really well. I just think it's a great movie with him, Gene Hackman, Morgan Freeman. And you see Clint Eastwood works with Morgan Freeman quite a bit in movies. And it
Yeah.
shows you how good, like he might come off as, I'm pardon my French, might come off as a hard ass, but he truly is a good director. It's not as bad as Stanley Kubrick at points, which I'm not going to get into him, because Stanley Kubrick to me is an ass, no matter what he did. But yeah, um I love Clint Eastwood. I love the colors that he does. Even with American Sniper, it's a good mention. It's
Hmm.
kind of like it has like that filter on, like, oh, he's in war, he's in this, and he does so well with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've noticed in some of his movies he has like that dark filter, or
Yeah.
it's like especially with Million Dollar Baby, it's kind of eerie almost.
And he
But
does the
not
same thing with Gran Torino.
yep, Gran Torino. Yeah, that's another one for
And the
sure.
only time you really see it come to light is when they're reading his will. And
Oh yeah, I never even thought about it that way.
that's when he gives the Torino to the kid that's been helping him.
To Tao, yeah.
And it's been a while since I've watched it, but I love the shots he does. But yeah, so that is my number 4. So Pat, let's go to your number 3.
Yeah, so my number three, he's a pretty iconic actor. He has a quite a range too as far as what kind of movies he does. I think in his earlier years, he did a couple different ones, and then especially later on. But he's also known for some of the best gangster movies of all time. And I think that's what really changed everything for him. I'm gonna go with Martin Scorsese as my number three.
Yeah, I figure he was going to be on your list somewhere because I know you're a big Goodfellas fan. So
Goodfellas is one of my absolute favorites. I think it's one of the best movies ever made, in
mhm.
my opinion. I think a lot of people, there's that's so subjectable and so opinionated, as far as what's what. But I mean, you got Raging Bull, you got Taxi Driver, New York, New York, um, Mean Streets, I think, as well. He also started a lot of careers with, Harvey Keitel, with Robert De Niro.
Mhm.
Um, I want to say Al Pacino. No, Al Pacino was in a couple other movies
Yeah,
before that.
I think
Yeah.
he was the Scarface too before that.
hmm But Joe Pesci.
Yeah, Ray
Yeah.
Liotta got lifted
Yeah.
there.
Ray Liotta. Yeah, especially with Goodfellas too. And I think yeah, man, it's just good. You mean you got Goodfellas, Casino, Gangs of New York,
The Departed.
The
I
Departed.
can't even believe you haven't brought that one up yet,
Well,
buddy.
I'm just, I'm on the page right now, and I'm just, kind of going from bottom
I'm
to
shocked you
top.
didn't even bring up the best movie he's ever in as an actor. And this is just being sarcastic, man. Shark
And what?
in Shark Tank with Will Smith. Go on now.
Dude, The Color of Money though, that's another one I like. Uh, The Color of Money with Paul Newman and a young Tom Cruise,
Yeah,
or should I say Top Gun for pool tables?
yeah, that's it.
Um,
I'm a Paul Newman fan. I'm not a big Tom Cruise fan, so that's where I have to lay. No,
uh, I have not checked out The King of Comedy. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
no, that one I have. I've heard of it, but I've never watched it.
Yeah.
Um, but I agree with you there. I think his visuals are amazing, and I think
Oh,
focus.
100%.
I think the only thing I don't like about his directing is I don't like the back and forth. So like when you get like when a good one is Goodfellas. I like Goodfellas just as much as anybody else. But I think with me when it comes to Goodfellas, it's one of those things that it can get annoying when they're going back and forth, back and forth.
I
Just
see.
stick with the story and move forward. Like The Departed, it worked because you're getting all the mystery and you're getting everything that's been happening.
hmm
But like then it was like, okay, just tell the story. You don't need to go
Yeah.
childhood. You don't need to go here. You need to go. You just need to stick with the story and move forward. Um, my favorite movie of his still is Raging Bull. I think the way it was shot, gray and white, Robert De Niro in the acting role for that, I think was perfect.
Yeah.
And it's like an icon. The Irishman is another good one. I'm shocked you haven't even brought him up. That one movie up.
Yeah, the Irishman's good. There's just some of the CGI I don't like, and I think that kind of takes away from it just a tad. But what are you gonna do?
Like I think the only thing I didn't like about that is he brought a lot of actors that he's worked with.
Yeah, it's kind of played out almost.
And to me, like you portray him one movie as Italian, and the next movie you're putting him as Irish. So
Yeah, it's just weird.
it's
I don't
just
think you can get any better than Goodfellas, personally. I
I think
mean,
that's all.
Casino's great too. I mean, it's got its parts for sure, but it's just Goodfellas is just iconic. Another thing too is like just the soundtracks he has in his movies. He's really good with music. That plays out in Goodfellas, that plays out in Casino.
Mhm.
Uh, there's also a lot of good original scores too. I know, was it Taxi Driver's got a good score to it.
Yeah,
Um,
I forget he did Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro. I forgot
yeah,
he did that movie with him.
yeah. Wolf. I know your favorite movie, Wolf of Wall Street. He did.
No pins, just no.
He did. He did The Aviator. You know,
That I did like. That movie, I think gets crapped on a lot. I enjoyed The Aviator.
I like Cape Fear. Cape Fear, I think Robert De Niro brought out a different type of acting in
Wait a minute,
it.
Martin Scorsese directed that movie?
What's that?
Martin Scorsese directed?
Yeah, yeah.
I, oh wow,
Directed Cape Fear. He directed The Age of Innocence with Daniel Day-Lewis.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, he worked with Daniel Day-Lewis quite a bit.
Because he
I
did the
mean, he
Gangs of New
did.
York too.
Yeah, yep. Man, that's such a good movie. Gangs of New
I'll,
York's
I'll, I'll take
fantastic.
my Leonardo DiCaprio comment back. I'd probably say Gangs of New York is one of my other favorite
I
movies.
don't even like him in it. I think anything with Daniel Day-Lewis
It
is
just
just, yeah.
but Martin Scorsese, but you don't see a lot with him either anymore. You get I think the
He's
Iron Man was really the last big project he worked on. And
he's
then
getting older though too. He's pushing 80.
yeah.
Um,
Hey, if Clint Eastwood can still direct films at his age, you
it's
know what?
true.
There's no reason he can't either.
And Clint Eastwood does one probably every 2 to 3 years, I think.
I think he's coming up to it because now his son's in acting and directing now.
Scott Eastwood.
Scott Eastwood.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I'll go to my number three if you're ready to move.
Yeah. Go for it. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a movie that I love that this man directs. I love the shots he puts out. The cinematography in his movies are just always outstanding. I'm going with Sam Mendes.
Mm.
Sam Mendes to me, if anybody does not know the movies this man has directed, 1917, which is about World War One. American Beauty is another great one with Kevin Spacey. Empire of Light, Revolutionary Road, Skyfall, and Spectre, and my personal favorite, Road to Perdition with Tom Hanks. This man alone does some of the best visuals, some of the best shots.
Hmm.
The one that plays out in my head every time is the Road to Perdition scene where, now mind you, Road to Perdition's like we said, we has Tom Hanks, Paul Newman, Jude Law, Daniel Craig, and so many other actors. And the one shot you see Tom Hanks in the dark, and Paul Newman and his bodyguards are walking out to the car, and the car's locked, and we realize the driver's been shot. And all of a sudden, you just see these bullets just flying out. That dark
Yeah.
scene and the shadows here, you finally see Sullivan walk out.
Hmm.
That shot alone with the music that was playing behind it, he does a lot with Thomas Newman. By God, and then hear what Paul Newman says, it's like, I'm glad it was you. Oh man.
Yeah, man. I think that's probably one of my favorite parts of the movie, other than the ending. The ending is fantastic too. I
I
mean, that's
will see, if you're a comic book fan, you would understand people are pissed with that ending
yeah.
because there was more comics. And so where they left it off was really like in the middle of the second book,
Hmm.
and then they just ended it. And it was just like, well, you could have did another one if you really wanted to. But I still am content with what we got. I love the movie. It's one I watch all the time. 1917 is another well done shot movie.
Oh yeah, I was just about to. Yeah, I was just about to start talking about that.
One of the best scenes to me is when the plane's coming into the barn. Still to this day is iconic. Like that to me is just great cinematography. His shots with American Beauty, I thought were fantastic. Just the well done shots he does. It's just fantastic. And the visuals he has for the movies, the colors, like Road to Perdition is a great thing. I think
Hmm.
he's just up there with Wes Anderson when it comes to colors. Uh,
Yeah.
you have Wes Anderson who's more vibrant and everything like that. And American Beauty's like that. It's more vibrant. It's more bright colors, if you really want to say something. But when you get Road to Perdition, he goes dark. It's a dark filter on top of a colorful movie. The whites,
Hmm.
the dark clothes. You see that these guys aren't all good people. And you see, like, even the shots with the cars and everything, I think are just so well done. Still, one of my favorite shots, too, is Road to Perdition, is when you have that intersection scene where they're going to Chicago, and it's just a wide spread out view of the land. And it's like in the middle of nowhere, and it's just so well beautifully shot. And then when you get to Chicago, just a well done scene there. It's just fantastic how he directs films. And
Yeah.
it's more, he's a visual director than anything, and I love it. But the scores too with his like American Beauty's a good one, and Road to Perdition is another great score. um
Have
Movies.
you seen Away We Go?
Yes, I have. It's a good movie. I enjoy.
Uh, I've seen Revolutionary Road.
Yes. um he is just a really good, well thought out director that out of my list I think gets sat on a lot. Like, you have Alfred Hitchcock, you have Clint Eastwood, and you have
Yeah.
others. He's the one that people forget about more.
Well, what's crazy too is that he only has 9 movies.
But
Um,
all those 9 movies, what has he done? He has shown perfection.
he's got American Beauty, Road to Perdition, Jarhead, Revolutionary Road, Away We Go, Skyfall,
Mhm.
Spectra, 1917, and his most recent one is Empire of Light.
But even the shots with James Bond and Spectre and Skyfall are well done. I think
Mhm.
the visuals we get from there are top notch. It's he's a visual director. That's why I always say with him, it's not so much like my next two that is more stuff like that. It's well, my next one will be, but he thinks of well thought out shots. And the colors on those movies too do put out a different point of view. Like I said, that dark, vibrant, and grim view of Road to Perdition to American Beauty being vibrant,
Mhm.
inspiring like a new life to change his life around, do things like that. But yeah, so that is my number three, Sam Mendes. So I'm gonna turn it over to Patty B to go over his number two.
Oh man, my number two. You know, they're another set of directors. I guess that kind of gives it away
Yeah,
right there.
you just gave it away, buddy.
They do a lot of different movies with the same people, which I like that with directors. They stick to what they know and what they can get out of certain actors and actresses. Um and they just have a wide variety of different movies. I'm going with the Coen brothers as my number two. Just the way they're able to storytell, the way they're able to do dialogue, the way they're able to do imperfect perfections, I should say. The way they write into the script of how, characters conversate between one another and the way they'll write in a stutter or something like that, or something, like I said, imperfect, something that's not supposed to be there, but it just flows with the conversation. Um, and just the way you have character development, I think, in his movies as well, or in their movies. They also got great cinematography, I think, in a lot of different movies. I like some of the shots in Big Lebowski with the bowling balls, stuff like that. Fargo is another one of my. I think Fargo is probably one of my top movies of theirs. If I had to put a top three of the Coen Brothers, Fargo would easily make that for me.
Yeah.
Um, Burn After Reading, I think, is underrated. I don't think a lot of people talk about that movie. And that's another thing too for the Coen Brothers with me is that I am a big fan of short movies. So like a good like a 90-minute thrill ride for me. I love it because it's short, it's to the point, it says everything it needs to say. Now, I will say in a lot of their movies, which I also like, I like it and I don't like it. It just depends on how the story goes for me. But the way they end movies kind of unresolved, like No Country for Old Men, which I think a lot.
That's where
I
I
think
don't like him as much, those guys as much, because I felt like they
really,
went off so like he skates, but then why did we need that scene with Tommy Lee Jones at the end? Because at this point, it's kind of like you're just talking about a big failure to you. Why not just leave it alone where he escapes you in the movie there?
I think it kind of ties into what he was talking about in the beginning of the movie. Like how there's people out there that do what they do, and uh, man, I can get into that. But yeah, we could probably, so I don't know. It's just you're probably right. There's probably some things in it that didn't need to be in it, but I think also Anton Chigurh, played by Javier Bardem, is probably one of the best characters they've ever written.
I agree with you there. I
Um,
10% there.
the just and I mean, like, I couldn't recommend that movie enough. No Country for Old Men is probably one of their best movies. I'm a sucker for Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Um, I love short story movies like that have different stories, and I love it. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah.
That's another good movie. It's a tie-in with the Odyssey, um, which I like. That's kind of cool because if you've seen the Odyssey, um, I saw it in high school. So I think when I watched it and then someone told me it kind of adapts to that, I kind of compared it a little bit. And I was like, oh wow, it totally is, but it's not. It's a different story. The Hudsucker Proxy with Tim Robbins and Jennifer Jason Leigh. And that's another thing too. I forget which one's married to her, but Frances McDormand is married to one of the Coen brothers. I want to say it's Joel, but I could be wrong. Because it's Joel and Ethan Cohen.
Mhm.
Have you seen Raising Arizona?
Yes, I have. I've only watched it once, and it was a while back, so I
Yeah.
don't know tons about it, but I have watched it.
Okay.
Um, Another good one I see that they did too, and I forgot they did this, is Unbroken.
Yeah.
They did that with Angelina,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken. Um, and then they also did True Grit.
Hmm.
That's another
Yeah.
good.
With Jeff Bridges, right?
That I like the remake.
Matt Damon. Yeah. Christian
And
Bale.
young Haley Steinfeld as well is in that movie.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she's the little girl in that movie. So, uh,
I think I can't. I have to say it without can't move on without it. But The Big Lebowski also I think is one of the more iconic movies too.
dude,
The dude abides. And I love Sam Elliott in that movie. He's only in it like very shortly. He's kind of the narrator, but just that movie in general. I think it's this might be a hot take, but I think it's one of John Goodman's best movies, like character wise. Like it's one of his best characters.
I'll give you that as a hot take because I think he's iconic for other roles, and like that, I feel like movie wise, put him on the mark.
Yeah.
But
Well, you don't think Babe Ruth did?
uh, what I mean is like, okay,
That's
you
messing with you.
like, what is he more famous for, right? You get him in Roseanne, and
Yeah.
really what boosted his career. He had a career beforehand, but that's kind of what essentially boosted it even more. And then you get
Hmm.
him, and I still, I this might be a hot take. I like him as a voice actor compared to
Yeah. I
be-
forgot about that too. Yeah.
because he is Sully from Monsters Inc. He is Baloo in the remake of Jungle Book, or the second, like
Uh,
the
Yeah,
second
dude.
cartoon movie. It was, I like his iconic voice roles compared to I liking him as a real actor. But I also like him in Kong. I like him in other things too. So it's a hot take. I enjoy John Goodman as an actor no matter what. Anything he's in, I'm watching. I think the only one I have a hot take on was 10 Cloverfield Lane. I didn't like him in that role. I
Yeah, that's a different. Have you ever seen? I don't know if you said it already. I might have. I don't know if I missed it, but what's with Kevin Bacon?
Death
Uh, huh?
Death Sentence.
Death Sentence. That's the one.
I like him in that movie.
Oh, that's a great
Kind of
movie,
plays a
man.
weird role. He kind of plays a weird role, and so does Kevin Bacon. But I
Yeah,
still liked it. It's a
Kelly Preston's in it too. I think
Yeah, that what was it? But it's like if anybody does not know that movie, because it was more of a TV movie. It wasn't a movie that was released in
it
theater.
wasn't a big movie. No.
But it was Kevin Bacon's son is killed in a robbery incident
Uh huh.
while they're filling up at a tank. So of course he goes on vengeance, and of course the gang finds his family and pretty much kills his whole family.
Yeah, it's gnarly, dude. There's kind of some really tough scenes in that movie too.
But
Like
it's
it's
a
kind
really
of
good
barbaric.
revenge story. If you want revenge stories and stuff, this is
Hmm.
like I enjoyed that movie still. I watched that. It was just on TV not too long ago when we watched it, and I was just like,
Yeah,
this movie existed. But
and while we're talking about John Goodman, I mean John Goodman he did a lot of early Coen Brothers movies. I think he did Raising Arizona before he even did um
Lebowski.
the no before he did Roseanne, I think.
Did he?
Yeah, because Raising Arizona is from '87. I don't know when. I don't
Uh,
know.
I think Roseanne started just around that time.
Okay, so maybe yeah, but still, like I mean, he started in one of their old or their earlier movies.
Yeah.
They have was it Blood Simple? I think is their first one, and Frances McDormand's in it too.
Mhm.
But yeah, and I think another thing too with just Fargo, I think I'll leave it with Fargo with this before we move on.
Fargo was a
Um,
big hit.
it
Like,
was, and I think I've seen a couple interviews, especially I think was it Tom Hanks, and this is I think a big thing coming from Tom Hanks. He's one of the most iconic actors of all time. He was like Fargo is literally a perfect movie, like through and through, from start to finish. It's just perfect.
and it's
There's
what
nothing, Go ahead.
and that movie was only like an hour and a half long. It wasn't even
It's like an hour and 35 minutes. Yeah, it's nothing. It's like I said, with their movies, they're short, but they're quick to it. Especially with Burn After Reading. Burn After Reading is one of those. It's just like it's foot on the gas pedal the whole time.
I think why I sit on the Coen brothers a lot is because they work with a couple actors I do not care for.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt is one of them,
Uh-huh.
and George Clooney. I am not a big George Clooney guy. I have never really been a George Clooney guy. I feel like he thinks he's worth more than what he really is. And I've never really liked his acting. It just is one of those guys like, okay, you're there. Like, you're not the best actor.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of my ones I don't like with him is Ides of March. And the Ides of March, I just feel like there are so many other actors who outshined him in that movie, and he was supposed to be the big person in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
You have Ryan Gosling, you have I think Paul Giamatti is in that film. You have so many other good actors that outshined him, and who got paid the big bucks for that movie? George Clooney.
Yeah.
I don't like his acting. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but that
No, 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 no. You're
I
good.
don't like Hail Caesar. I thought that was kind of a stupid movie.
I
I
think Men Who Stare at Goats. Have you seen that movie?
I watched parts of it. I think I turned it off quick.
Dude, okay, so as a Star Wars fan, I don't know if you've heard, but if you watch that movie, he he calls because they go through that class, right? That mental class.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You're a Jedi," and he literally calls Ewan McGregor a Jedi in the movie, and it's awesome, dude. I don't know. As a Star Wars fan, I was geeking out because I was like, "Oh my god, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi!" Like they do it on purpose, obviously, but it's just great.
So
Um, but yeah, other than that, I don't know if you have any other stuff to add with the Coen brothers, but we'll move it along to your number two if you're ready.
so I'm going from one person that has great shots at my number 3 with Sam Mendes to another person who does fantastic with shots and visuals. And can confuse you sometimes, but you have to watch it a couple times. That's the purpose of watching his movies. I'm going with the great Christopher Nolan.
Mm.
By far one of my favorite directors of all time. My first movies with him was the Dark Knight trilogy. So that was Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises. Granted, Dark Knight Rises, I will still say fans probably his weakest out of the three. Dark Knight was his top of the shell. Like that hit bars.
Mm-hmm.
That set boundaries of what superhero movies should be. And his movies sometimes can be really confusing. The purpose of it, though, is to make you watch it again. Let's just go over some of the movies that he's most famous for. Of course, we can talk about Oppenheimer being one of his more famous recent movies.
Yeah, yeah.
Tenet, Interstellar,
Uh-huh.
trilogy, Inception, Memento, The Prestige, Dunkirk, Insomnia is another good one. My point is simple. This man, like, let's look at Inception, right? And Tenet. The shots and the creativity in that was all done by Christopher Nolan.
Yep.
Again, another person who has a great composer set up with Hans Zimmer, probably one of the best composers of all time is Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
He
100%.
like you get, and he does James Newton Howard too every so often, but though it's more Hans Zimmer. But his movies make you really think. I think one of the ones that really do that is The Prestige. The Prestige being the act of illusion is what makes that movie so great. That has Hugh Jackman, Christian Bale, Michael Caine's in that movie.
Michael Caine.
And Scarlett Johansson. This is a young Scarlett Johansson too. This is before Black Widow and everything like this. It's just a great setup. And the way that movie's portrayed, it's one of my favorite Christopher Nolan films, even over Inception. It's just because of the way of what you think is not what you should think, or what you see is not what you should perceive. It's one of those things that make you really think and want to go back and rewatch it again. He's a good director where he wants you to go rewatch something. Dark Knight, you do that. Batman Begins, you do that.
Mm-hmm. Interstellar, you do that. I mean, I feel like anytime I watch Interstellar, I feel like I'm learning something new from that movie every time.
Yeah, that's how I look at the Batman trilogy. You look at the Batman trilogy he did, you see something different every time you watch it.
Yeah.
And it's and Inception's another great one that way, that you perceive something and it's not really there. And again, that's a star-studded cast too.
Oh yeah.
Dunkirk is another big star-studded cast, but that is one that I feel like isn't as good as his others. Now, Dunkirk, not ever degrading that movie. That is such a great war film. But compared to some of the other ones he's done, it's one of those, like, even Insomnia and Memento, you have to go back and rewatch. It's like, hold up. And Insomnia, is one of my favorites. I love him with Al Pacino and Robin Williams. I think that was a great duo he worked with, and Hilary Swank's in that movie.
Yeah.
But Christopher Nolan's just a great visual person. That
He
he wants to
yeah.
see things and not really see what you see is what you shouldn't be thinking. And like one of my favorites still to this day is the Inception top
Yeah.
at the end of the movie. And it's like, oh, what's that? Are we still in a dream or are we not in a dream?
Hmm.
Are we here or are we not here kind of thing? And that's what's so great about him
Yeah.
is because you don't know what's really happening. The Dark Knight does that too. It really does. Like they set off at good points, but like the Dark Knight, how it ends, that Batman's on the run because he doesn't want to be viewed as a hero. He killed the city's hero in Harvey Dent. He doesn't
Yes. Yeah.
view as a hero, and he's on the run, and he's on the run for a good 8-10 years. But see, I think he visualized too by going through the comics. Like you get some of those iconic scenes, like the three of them up on the building, Harvey Dent, James Gordon, and Batman. That is from The Long Halloween. You have all these great visuals, and he mixes the comics really well. You have the third one, which is based off No Man's Land. You have the second one that's based off of Long Halloween, plus a couple other comics with the Joker in it. And the first one is kind of Batman Year One. There's a lot of
Hmm.
points that he does, and I love the way he does it. But yeah, my earliest memories with Batman Begins. Having those movies, having that road where you're seeing Batman, and I think he revolutionized what Batman movies should be. Mind you, we haven't had a Batman movie since the crappy Batman and Robin movie. So, but yeah, that's what's good about Christopher Nolan. I love his
Yeah.
movie. I think he does a great visual perspective of movies. But yeah, before we go to our number ones, let's go over our honorable mentions. We'll rapid fire
Hmm.
so we can kind of go through them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I'll let you go through yours, Mr. Patrick.
Well, Chris Nolan for sure, like you said. And another thing I was gonna add on to that real quick was, I love his character development with
Yeah,
some of these movies, especially Bruce Wayne. I think he captivated what Bruce Wayne is, or who he is. I think I think it's the perfect Bruce Wayne, in my opinion.
I'll give you that. Like I will always say when it comes, it's just the same way we look at Spider-Man's, right? You have Tobey Maguire, who was a good Spider-Man,
Hmm.
or you have it's a good Peter Parker, but he wasn't a good Spider-Man. You look at Andrew
Yeah.
Garfield, and he was the other way around. And then you got Tom Holland, who's the perfect package. Michael Keaton was a good Batman, or not really. I wouldn't say a good Batman, more of a Bruce Wayne,
Hmm.
but he wasn't a good Batman. Val Kilmer was more. He was okay as Batman. He wasn't good as Bruce.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, like with
George Clooney
Michael,
was just terrible.
and like with Michael Keaton, and like with Michael Keaton, like we said earlier when was talking about Tim Burton, it's like, those are completely different movies. Just how Tim Burton directs and everything. Um, it kind of gives off kind of like a Tim Burton energy with his character.
Right.
Just how that evolves. But anyway, going back to Chris Nolan, yeah. So I got Chris Nolan. I have Spike Lee, and I won't really touch on most of his movies, but I just like I like the way he works the camera. I like the way he kind of also captivates the story that he's doing. I was a big fan of He Got Game.
Yeah.
I like that movie. Oliver Stone is probably my last honorable mention I'll go with. Um, I just love the way he shoots his films as far as like just colors go, but it's like kind of like it's very like a hallucinating kind of like with Natural Born Killers is one of them for sure that he really shows that. That's almost like cartoony, kind of hallucinating.
But like,
Um,
or isn't Oliver Stone? He does Platoon, right? Or is
yeah,
he?
he does Platoon. Yeah,
And he does really good with. I think the colors in that looks amazing.
yeah, yeah. Platoon, the JFK
Yeah,
movie that he did with Kevin Costner.
yeah,
And another one too, and we talked about this. That's why I love the movie so much. And you can tell when you watch it, you can tell it's an Oliver Stone movie, and it's any given Sunday.
yeah.
It's just,
I
you
forget
know,
he does that movie though.
yeah, a lot of
One of
people do.
like
A
I
lot of
would
people.
never put him there because you would think of him like as Platoon. Who and I was thinking Stanley or who directed Full Metal Jacket, but that was Stanley Kubrick.
Mhm.
Um, but didn't he do Born on the Fourth of July as well?
I think so. I can look it up.
Because that one, I would admit, if that's the case, I could see your point of hallucination because he does. Like I believe he did that one. I think he directed that. Yep, he directed it. He's in the
Okay.
movie. He directed. Um, but I think that's a great movie. I think it's one of the only ones I could watch Tom Cruise in it and actually take him legitimately as an actor. Uh,
Yeah. And
but
he did Platoon. And I think the reason why I think personally Platoon is one of the better Vietnam movies as far as how it's adapted and how it's explained a little bit from their point of view. He's actually a veteran
yeah,
from that war. So I think he had a different perspective on how he wanted to put, how he wanted to bring that story up. So yeah, that's my honorable mention.
yes.
Um yeah.
So I'll go over mine quick. I'll rapid fire them. John Lasseter, man who created Toy Story himself, one of the men that helped create Pixar and put Pixar on the map. I love his visuals. I love his directing. There's a reason why he comes back now. There's a reason why he is one of the head creators in Disney.
Hmm.
To hear that story that he was actually denied from Disney and then he found Pixar and created something like Toy Story. It's just a bittersweet story for Disney. Um,
Yeah.
Hayao Miyazaki. Now, if you guys don't know what Hayao Miyazaki is, he is the man who did um, the movie Spirited Away, which Spirited Away won the second best animated picture of all time. Mind you,
Mhm.
best animated picture did not start till 2001, 2002 timeframe because Shrek was the first winner of the award. Spirited Away was the second. And Spirited Away by far has some of the most beautiful pictures. But not only that, he does Howl's Moving Castle, My Neighbor Totoro. Here's one that I know Patrick will know: Princess Mononoke.
Yep.
Yeah, what was it? Ponyo, The Wind Rises, Castle in the Sky. Just his directing style alone, really, and the visuals he puts together,
Hmm.
it's just so fantastic the way he does it. And it's just stunning to see the art in this. It really is. And like I said, it just is fantastic to see his collaboration with Studio Ghibli
Hmm.
and his work with them.
Well,
Spirit
like you were saying
of
too, the visuals, like Princess Mononoke is great, and I'm kind of trying to as uh Artie Bucco would say from The Sopranos, I was trying to broaden my horizons with some anime. You recommended Princess Mononoke to me, and I actually really enjoyed the movie. Like you said, the visuals, the artwork with it, it's real, and the story's cool. I think with probably animes for me, I just need to kind of watch them a little bit more, probably a few more. I think I would have to watch Mononoke a couple more times to really get a grasp on what's going on between different characters and whatnot. But also Billy Bob Thornton voicing in the American dub version is pretty great too. Because when I listened to it, I was like, "That's Billy Bob. That's Bad Santa right there."
Now, I also have a couple other ones. I have James Cameron.
Oh yeah.
I cannot go without talking about James Cameron. I think his work in Titanic, his work in Avatar is just
Mhm.
iconic. You see why he does not come out with a lot of movies because he perfects it and he tries to do everything he can.
And the box office shows.
Yeah,
I
he has
mean,
two of the most highest grossing films of all time. Avatar. Well, he has three really: Avatar two, Avatar, and
Titanic.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know. And the reason is too is really look at how many years of a difference there is from the first Avatar movie to now, and now we're gonna get multiples throughout the next few years, shows you why he wanted to take his time and perfect it.
Yeah.
Shows. Tim Burton. I could not make a list without Tim Burton on this. Tim Burton was hard for me to keep off because I do love his creativity, and I love that he doesn't give up. And he brings different things to the table that people would think, oh, that kind of looks disturbing. But then when you watch it like Nightmare Before Christmas, and you watch it and you see the message it's portraying, and it's like, you know what? He's not that bad of a guy. Um, my last one I want to bring up, of course, is George Lucas. And the only reason I say is because he redefined things as well. He redefined the sci-fi thing. He is the perfect personification of an underdog. Nobody thought he would ever get to this point. Nobody would ever, and look what he did, right? He
Hmm.
made Star Wars. He's made American Graffiti, which is about his hometown where we're from, Modesto, or where you used to be. You know, it's that whole thing of he's such a great director and he has a great mind. There's reasons why he still collaborates with Disney with Star Wars. There's reasons why he still does things to help move forward. You know, that's why I love the director Dave Filoni, who does the Clone Wars and now he's doing Ahsoka and everything like that. It's one of those things that he really based his work off of Lucas,
Yeah.
where I don't think the other directors who've directed stuff have really done that. You know, Ron Howard came in, I don't feel like he really cared. You know, I feel like when you watch somebody like, you know, there's just so much with him that I love. And so that's it. So let's go over our number one. So let's go over your number one first, good sir. And I probably
Um,
know who it's going to be.
you do, you do, because I haven't said him yet.
Yeah.
Um, he, in my opinion, is one of the greatest directors ever, and I think his diet. You don't think so?
I'd not put him in the top five best directors of all time.
I'd put him in. I put him in any top 10. I'm
Not
putting him in my top five. He's my top five.
yet.
Um, the king of dialogue. Uh, you know, great the way he shoots scenes. I mean, I'm watching one right now as I'm talking, but Mr. Quentin Tarantino is my number one. Uh, he's got some of the more iconic movies of today. I'm not saying ever, but I think, with the likes of Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, there's nothing to be denied by that. Uh, I don't even know where to start really with his movies. I mean, I'll just kind of go down the list of everything he's done. He's got Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. He worked with Robert Rodriguez with Planet Terror, and as well as From Dusk Till Dawn. He also did Death Proof, Inglorious Bastards, Django, Hateful Eight, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I know you were saying, Brandon, Once Upon a Time Hollywood's probably one of your favorite movies of his. If you had to
it,
probably
it, it,
pick one, right?
it's one of the ones I could actually sit there and say I could watch again.
Yeah,
And but I think with his movies, they rub me the wrong way. It's just like Pulp Fiction and that is probably the only two I could sit there and rewatch all the time.
yeah.
Any other movies I've watched with him, I've just went, I don't care.
Hmm.
But I'm not saying there aren't great performances. Like Christoph Waltz in his movies is
Oh yeah,
perfect. Like I
an
think,
Oscar for both of them.
yeah, he won Oscars for both his roles. Yeah, he won it for Django Unchained and Inglorious Bastards.
Yep.
Um, Inglorious Bastards, I think, was his better one out of the two. Like I liked him in Inglorious Bastards more, just because he was that evil guy that you just don't see being evil kind of thing. And
Hmm.
I like his character more in that one. Um, but see, it's weird because I've told you two actors I don't like is
Yeah.
in Hollywood, and that is Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt. But I also like it because of Margot Robbie. I think Margot Robbie's career got boosted quite a bit lately.
Really, from that movie, you think?
Well, no, like Wolf on Wall Street, of course, is like one of her first big ones, and then Harley Quinn, of course, is what boosted her.
Tanya. She got a lot of
She got a lot of praise for that movie, and I
yeah.
did like that movie, but I don't think she was the star of that movie. I think it was Allison, what's her face from Mom, and a couple other movies.
Oh, from yeah. No, she does all the Kaiser Permanente commercials.
I like her. Like, I think she won an Oscar. Remember, she won a
It's Juno's stepmom.
yeah, and then but mind you too, Margot Robbie did it, win an Oscar for that, but
Hmm.
she did. Her mom, the one that portrayed her mom, but
Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino is just one of those actors that, or one of those directors that I just look at and I go, why? Sometimes because like Kill Bills. And this might be a hot take. I'm not a Kill Bill fan. I've never liked any Kill Bill movie that he's directed.
It's definitely those are definitely movies I don't gravitate towards when I watch his movies.
Yeah.
I got I think I've said it before, but I think Jackie Brown is one of his most underrated movies personally.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I just love the storytelling and I love the characters in it. Max Cherry, Jackie Brown. I'm gonna say it too. I think Samuel L. Jackson's role in Jackie Brown is better than his Pulp Fiction role. If I'm that's just me. That's my opinion. That's my hot take. But also I've seen Jackie Brown a lot, and dude, just the stuff he says in it and the way he acts, he's
I'll give Quentin Tarantino some props there. He boosted Jackson's career.
oh
No, he
100%. And
he
but they
did.
love working together too. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
He
I
did the
think
Hateful
Samuel
Eight with
Jackson.
him, right? He did the Hateful Eight with him.
Oh yeah, dude, I love him in Hateful Eight. Hateful Eight's that's another one too. I think Hateful Eight, Pulp Fiction, and Jackie Brown are like his three top characters that he's been.
Screw you. There's Mace Windu.
Well,
Come
no, I'm talking
on.
about Quentin
I
Tarantino.
was like,
Mace
what?
Windu.
What? You
Um,
forgot the scientist from Jurassic Park 2? Come on now. You forget his
um,
role in Goodfellas? Come on.
he's slick or what's yes, no stretch. I
Sure.
forget his. Yeah, it's one of those. I probably both got them wrong, honestly. But yeah, man, I'm sure we could do an episode on Quentin Tarantino sometime, or at least do a watch along with one of his movies. But I think your face says it all, Brandon. He's so enthused. Um, anyway, man, yeah, Django is great. I know I've said that in the past. Hateful Eight is, I like his takes on westerns too. Like I love that time frame
I'll
of
give you props there.
how he does that.
I cannot sit here and say that his westerns he's done that I've not liked them.
Yeah.
But there are good westerns. Like Hateful Eight was great. Django Unchained was great.
Hmm.
There's just certain things I just don't care.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
I get that.
so
I like with Hateful Eight too, and I like this just about movies and some movies in general. I like the movies that take place in one day.
yes, I'll give you there. I'll give
I
you
love that. And I think that's one of the reasons why it make Hateful Eight is good because it's just all this chaos happens in one night, basically, or a day throughout the night.
well, just like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that all pretty
Yeah.
much takes place in a matter of a couple days. And
Hmm.
but no, that's a great pick. I knew it was going to be your number one.
Yeah.
So I'll go
That
with
was
my.
the easy part of making my list.
I'll tell you right now, my number one was easy too. When it really comes down to it, you cannot have this conversation with not bringing up probably one of the best directors of all time, the great Steven Spielberg. Um, Steven Spielberg alone has brought some of the most iconic movies to this big screen. Jaws, or Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List, E.T., Indiana
Hmm.
Jones, Catch Me If You Can. He did the remake of West Side Story. He did The Terminal. He did um, Minority Report, Lincoln, Empire of the Sun, Hook. You know, the list can Jurassic Park. There's so many movies this man has done and has never missed a mark. I'm not saying there aren't bad movies that he's done. War of the Worlds, pretty God, pretty pretty bad, But there's so many good movies he's done that outshines him. And to me, you get those iconic moments. This director probably has the best mashup with probably one of the best composers overall, which is John Williams. John Williams brings some of the most iconic scores to movies ever made, and it's sadly this man has not won a lot of Academy Awards for his scores. But yeah, Steven Spielberg has won a lot of awards for Best Director.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Terminal. I think
Terminal's
I don't
not my
know.
favorite, but
It's whatever.
but he has one of the best actors, like how you are with Tarantino and Samuel Jackson. It's how I feel with Spielberg and Tom Hanks. I think
Yeah.
their duo is just fantastic. I think every movie Tom Hanks has been a part with him is amazing. You
Mm.
know, Saving Private Ryan. He still has the most iconic war scene or reenactment ever in movie history, and that is D-Day. Still to this day, you saw the horrifics of what D-Day really was.
Yep.
And that is Steven Spielberg's little masterpiece there. Like there's some Jaws. You got so many Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones by far one of my favorite movie series of all time. It is by far still my favorite. I don't care about number 4. I forget number 4 happened. Number 5 wasn't terrible, so fans shut up about it. I love that movie. So
Empire of the Sun. Have you seen Empire of the Sun?
yes, and you realize who the young actor is in that film. That is Mr. Christian Bale.
Oh
Christian
wow.
Bale put on the mark for him. Um, yeah, Christian Bale was put on the mark by the great Steven Spielberg.
Close Encounters with the Third Kind.
That one is iconic too. He's great with visuals. One of my favorite movies with him in it is probably one of the only Tom Cruise movies I can sit here and watch is Minority Report. It's a very thought after movie, but it's
Hmm.
still a very great movie.
He does
It's
a lot of work with Tom Hanks.
Tom
Right?
Hanks and him are a duo. That
Yeah.
is anytime there's a good movie, Tom Hanks is in it. And he's great in every movie he's in. Terminal, granted, isn't his best, but it's not the worst.
I love him in Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah, Catch
I
Me.
think the chemistry between Leo, I would say that's one of Leo's best movies right there. I
Yeah,
know you're not, you
I,
know,
it's like I said before. I liked him in Catch Me If You Can. I think he played that maniacal asshole that we needed.
yeah.
And
Do you concur?
yeah, I agree there. I'll give you that. The Post he's in with him. There's what other ones is he in with him? Bridge of Spies is another big one he's in with him. Um, Terminal, Saving Private Ryan, Catch Me If You Can. He's just iconic in all his movies. Um, what was it? I think and again, he also boosted up a lot of actors' careers, and he has a great relationship with George Lucas. Those guys work on a lot of projects together. That's why you don't see George behind the chair a lot. He's one that's doing the visuals and helping out with the visual side of it. Him and Spielberg just have a good working relationship. But Steven Spielberg is just a great director, great visual, great everything that he has done. You guys ever have time to watch it? Watch Fableman. Fableman is pretty much about his life, and I think it's fantastic how he directs it. The actors in it are fantastic for him. It's just iconic. And West Side Story is probably the only one I didn't really care for with him.
Hmm.
Again, I think it's a movie that should have never been remade. But for what we got, it wasn't terrible. But anyway, that ends my number one. I knew right away when we did this list, Steven Spielberg was going to make my number one spot.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think that's how I felt about Quentin Tarantino too. I think it was an automatic. Him and Martin Scorsese were automatic. On my list. I just didn't know where I was going to place them.
I think that's the thing. It's like when you look at movies like Steven Spielberg, he has created a lot of visuals. He's created a lot of iconic moments.
Hmm.
And you cannot look at cinema and not thank him for a lot of things that we have now.
Yeah.
So that was my number one right away. But yeah, I think this is a great one in the podcast. Don't you agree, Patty B?
I definitely agree, sir. Thank you guys for listening. I'm hoping you guys enjoyed what we had to say and what we with our lists and whatnot. That's the fun thing too, is when we do stuff like this and it's our opinion, we get to express what we like and people get to listen to it and let us know in the comments and let us know your feedback and Yeah, other than that, thank you for coming on, Brandon. Appreciate it. And thank you for sharing your top five directors, and let me direct the end of this podcast. Thank you guys for listening. As always, just remember, we do it just for Flix.